2 years ago this month, Dr. Fauci has put on notice that the virus most likely came from a lab that was doing gain-of-function research. He gets a letter on January 31st, 10:32 p.m. 2020. He gets an email, from Dr. Christian Anderson that says, the virus looks engineered, virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. Dr. Fauci goes into complete overdrive to cover this information up and not present it to the American people. He organizes a conference call the next day with Fauci, Collins, and 11 virologists from around the world on that call. Dr. Gary on that call says this: I don't know how this happens in nature, but it would be easy to do in a lab. 4 days later, those people who express those sentiments start to change their position. They write a piece in Nature Medicine magazine on February 16th. It first gets published online. That piece is then cited on February 9th, 2020, in the now famous letter in The Lancet that becomes the gospel that this thing, according to Fauci and this group, didn't come from a lab. All that happens in 20 days. So they go from this thing looks engineered, this thing is not consistent with evolutionary theory, this thing could not have happened in nature, this thing would be easy to do in a lab, to completely changing their position. And here's the kicker. The two guys who said those things, Dr. Anderson and Dr. Gary, 3 months later get rewarded with an $8.9 million grant from Dr. Fauci to continue to do research on coronavirus.
So that sounds like exactly what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Fauci paid off doctors and scientists to cover up his crimes against humanity.
Well, I'm very excited for several reasons that two of our very popular products are back in stock. Whole Food Multivitamin, Essential Nutrient Multivitamin from natural healthy sources, not synthetic, and vitamin C and zinc with rose hips, the classic Linus Pauling, Nobel Prize winning formula to supercharge your immune system and every cell in your body. They're both back in stock, sold out for more than 4 months at 40% off. Another reason I'm very, very excited about this is this will fund our operation and keep us on air. So again, it's a 360 win, but whatever you do, go out and get an organic, whole food, multivitamin, and take vitamin C and take zinc. And we also have some great vitamin D products at InfoWarsStore.com you need as well. But whatever you do, defend your body's immune system. We want to keep patriots in the game against the New World Order. So it's a 360 win. Get something essential for your body and your health and your longevity and your immune system while funding the InfoWar at InfoWarsStore.com.
What the FDA is making clear is that these vaccines, the ones that they are fighting over, that the governor is fighting over, do not work against Omicron, and they have side effects. That is what the scientists are saying. We have sent them 71,000 doses of treatments that are effective against Omicron and are effective also against Delta. And they are still advocating for vaccines that don't work. We've seen, unfortunately, from the beginning in our pandemic response, a range of steps or pushes that have been made through social media platforms, unfortunately from the mouths of elected officials, and the advocating for things that don't work, even when we know things do work. Injecting vaccines, promoting other pseudoscience.
So nice, I had to play it twice. Great job by the crew. You're welcome, Jen Psaki. We were just correcting the lies that you told yesterday. We couldn't do it all the time. We'd be here 24 hours a day, but we decided to do you a favor. We do you one solid right there, just correcting the record. It's the vaccines that don't work. It's the vaccines that have the side effects, but you don't want to be honest about that. How much money does Jen Psaki have in big pharmaceutical companies, I wonder? Or does she just lie for fun? I mean, lying for profit, I guess, is one thing. Lying for fun is another. Maybe Jen Psaki's on one of those sides of that coin. We're in the second hour now of the Alex Jones Show. Owen Schroyer here sitting in for Alex, and we are just getting started on the news. In fact, let me get into the latest COVID news and vaccine news that we have here. Now, a lot is still being uncovered, but it's really just additional information and proof to what we already knew about Fauci and Daszak and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We pretty much, we know the story. Now more evidence is being collected to prove it, and not just prove Fauci's involvement and knowledge, but now we have all the evidence that he actually actively covered up the truth that he was involved in the Wuhan lab and that that's where the virus came from, with payouts of millions of dollars to doctors and scientists who were questioning the official narrative. Yes, that's how corrupt that dirtbag Anthony Fauci is. Let's look at the latest. Jim Jordan puts this out. January 27th, 2020, Fauci learned that his agency had been indirectly funding the Wuhan lab. So we now have that proof on record, so he can't deny it. Now, he knew it before then, but as far as just proof of receipts of him having knowledge of that, we now have that dated to January 27th, 2020. So this was really before the COVID panic began. January 31st, 2020, Fauci learned the virus looks engineered. And so now we have the receipts on that. Dozens of emails and phone calls going to Fauci saying, hey, this is not natural. This came out of a lab, and all scientists and doctors agree with it. And so now we're learning of the behind the scenes communications and power plays that were made by Fauci to cover this up. And everybody's starting to cover it, including Fox News. Fox News special report outlines fresh questions on what Fauci and government knew about COVID origin, because they're publishing all the receipts of Fauci covering it up, paying off people who questioned it, covering up his involvement, covering up the Wuhan leak. We now literally have all of it on record. It's all, I mean, Fauci is caught red-handed. This is ridiculous that he has not been investigated in a criminal investigation yet. So now listen to this clip of Jim Jordan really explaining it with the massive bombshell that should land Fauci in jail after a proper investigation. So here's Jim Jordan just laying it all out perfectly in clip 7.
2 years ago this month, Dr. Fauci has put on notice that the virus most likely came from a lab that was doing gain-of-function research. He gets a letter on January 31st, 10:32 p.m., 2020. He gets an email, from Dr. Christian Anderson that says, the virus looks engineered, virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. Dr. Fauci goes into complete overdrive to cover this information up and not present it to the American people. He organizes a conference call the next day with Fauci, Collins, and 11 virologists from around the world on that call. Dr. Gary on that call says this: I don't know how this happens in nature, but it would be easy to do in a lab. 4 days later, those people who express those sentiments start to change their position. They write a piece in Nature Medicine magazine on February 16th. It first gets published online. That piece is then cited on February 9th, 2020, in the now famous letter in The Lancet that becomes the gospel that this thing, according to Fauci and this group, didn't come from a lab. All that happens in 20 days. So they go from this thing looks engineered, this thing is not consistent with evolutionary theory, this thing could not have happened in nature, this thing would be easy to do in a lab, to completely changing their position. And here's the kicker. The two guys who said those things, Dr. Anderson and Dr. Gary, 3 months later get rewarded with an $8.9 million grant from Dr. Fauci to continue to do research on coronavirus.
So that sounds like exactly what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Fauci paid off doctors and scientists to cover up his crimes against humanity. Now, here's the next ripple here that is going to be, I think, realized perhaps by the individuals in the Republican Party like Jim Jordan and others who are investigating this, perhaps the doctors and scientists that are going around the planet warning of what Fauci has done, like Dr. Malone and the lawyers and all of it. I mean, this isn't going to go away. I mean, maybe Fauci gets away with these crimes, but the whole world is going to know what a rotten scoundrel he is, and I'm being kind. Here's the next realization, folks, to just put a cap on how evil Anthony Fauci truly is. We all knew about COVID in January of 2020. That's obvious. The doctors all knew about COVID in January of 2020. They were already doing research. They were figuring out what's going on with it. They were telling Anthony Fauci about it. Now, why didn't the American people start to hear from Fauci or the Trump administration or any of our health bureaucracies about COVID or shutdowns or border shutdowns until February of 2020. Why? Because in January of 2020, Fauci's number one priority was covering up his footprints. Fauci's number one priority in January of 2020 was not warning America about COVID, was not stopping COVID from coming here, was not trying to figure out the origins of COVID or how contagious it was going to be. It was covering up his involvement in the lab and paying off any doctors and scientists that could have figured it out. So we now have Dr. Anthony Fauci caught red-handed funding the Wuhan lab, caught red-handed covering up the truth of the Wuhan lab, and then caught red-handed delaying the information from getting out until he could cover up his own tracks leading back to the Wuhan lab. That's your Dr. Fauci. That's your Dr. Mengele. That is perhaps one of the most evil bureaucrats in American history, Anthony Fauci. It's disgusting. Now, see, this is where we have to be careful because I want Fauci protected. I want teams around Fauci. I want suicide watches on Fauci. I don't want a little hair harmed on his head. I am not calling for any violence against Anthony Fauci. And if anything happens to Anthony Fauci, we want to hold that individual or group of individuals responsible. I want a legal investigation into Anthony Fauci. I want it all to come out in court, and I want the world to see what Anthony Fauci has done in a criminal investigation in a court of law. So Fauci needs security personnel around him 24/7, maybe just in a jail cell for the crimes he's committed. I don't want any violence done against Anthony Fauci. Not a little whisker harmed on his buttocks. But I want him in court explaining his actions and the crimes he's committed that we all know he's done.
Our best-selling powerful brain pill, or nootropic, Brain Force Plus, has been sold out for months, but now it's back in stock. Now listen, there are other nootropics you can buy at the gas station for, $10 for 2 pills that will light you up like a Christmas tree, but are very, very toxic and will give you a hangover. Everything we sell and promote is the healthiest, cleanest, best things you're going to find. That's why I love Brain Force. It's got a lot of known natural compounds in it that are documented to give the brain a supercharged, clean focus. And so, yeah, if you want some stuff that's basically like speed, we're not selling it. But if you want something that is good for your brain and good for the connections in your mind and that doesn't kill brain cells and that is based on things God gave us, you want Brain Force Plus. So it's already a best-selling product. A lot of you already use it and love it. That helps fund the InfoWar. Thank you for supporting us. But for people who are on the fence, who haven't taken Brain Force Plus, you need to go to InfoWarsStore.com. You need to order it. You need to experience it. Now, it's also sold out. We're trying to get more in. We have Brain Force Ultra. Totally different formula. Whereas Brain Force Plus lasts about 5-6 hours, Brain Force Ultra lasts about 2-3 hours in my experience, but hits you really quick, and it is amazing. It's sold out right now, but it's totally different. It's not in competition with Brain Force Plus. And then there's Turbo Force that I personally, when I need it, only take half a package because it is a whole bunch of different types of natural energy, and it's super strong and, again, over the top. So they're all 3 different things. One's like a machine gun, one's like a shotgun, and then one is like a sniper rifle. They're all amazing. The bottom line is this: Brain Force Plus is back in stock, 40% off at InfoWarsStore.com, and I want you to try it.